I first came across Michael Nyman's music in the film The Draftsman's Contract, which sort of seeing as I don't know, probably a tender 18-year-old or something, I found incredibly shocking, the film. And also the fact that, you know, there was this weird bastardization of Purcell, if you like. And it was kind of, oh my God, this is outrageous on so many levels. And I kind of loved it and then didn't really think any more of Michael Nyman as a composer or as a film composer or whatever. And then it was many, many years later, and I was asked to have a look at this score, which at that time was called The Princess of Milan.
I decided to write an opera based on The Tempest, and it was basically 3 singers, soprano, tenor, and I guess a mezzo. And I had no knowledge of Hilary's background.
And I think they sort of said, oh, look, there's this young kid, she might be up for it because it's quite low and it's sort of a bit weird. And they presented me with this hideous score with it was just the vocal line with no other sort of, it wasn't a full score, it was just a vocal line and 28 bars rest and then another 60 bars rest and then a tenor line. And then I thought, what the hell? I mean, this is just ridiculous. And then they sent me a tape with just the band music. And you thought, well, hang on, am I supposed to just fit this together? And actually, the more I was listening to the band music, I thought, oh, this is really nice. Oh, I see, and that's it. So I was sort of karaokeing as I was sort of looking at this thing and said, yeah, okay, I'm in.
I was blown away by her voice. You know, I guess I was brought up. Did I know about contraltos in the 50s? Yeah, sort of knew Dame Janet Baker. And I'd never been close to a contralto, and I never had my music sung by a voice in that register. But it's not just the register. I mean, there's this kind of power and depth and kind of variety of kind of tone colours.
So that was great, and we just had a lovely, lovely time doing that. And I just became obsessed with Michael's music. And it was at that time that his Essential CD came out. And he said, oh, do you want to come along to the festival hall? I'm doing a concert. And I think the other sort of said, no, I'm busy tonight. And I said, oh, yes, please. And so I was sort of there with all these, and I'd never sort of seen a Nyman concert before, and all these sort of head-banging fans that are just loving this music. And it was the Essential, so it was all the pop hits. And I was head-banging along with them. I was just enwrapped. I could not get enough of this and immediately rushed out and bought the CD. It's a very visceral appeal. I think a lot of classical musicians, and particularly when they hear it live, just don't take to it. It's too much like a rock concert. It's too heavy, it's too loud, it's too in your face, it's too thumping, bumping, doof, doof, doof. It's too much like a rave or something. But I think it's this mesmerising quality of it, that these layers just build and the rhythm builds and the whole pulse and it just rises and it explodes and is fantastic, and it's very testosterone fueled. It's really very sort of sexual and exciting. As soon as we'd done Noisy Sounds and Sweet Airs, and I was busy sort of plundering through the rest of his oeuvre and thinking, oh, I could sing that, oh, I could do that, let me do that. And there were quite a few that I sort of really had my eye on, fancied. The first of those being the Celan songs that he wrote for Uta Lemper. And I sort of grabbed those and took possession of them. But the first thing he actually wrote for me, I think, was a piece called, it was The Cycle of Disquietude. I didn't ever really connect with that piece, I'll be absolutely honest, and he knows that. Then there was his opera Facing Goya. I mean, God, this was a huge, huge piece, and it started off about sort of 3.5 hours of music, really difficult music, and it was all staged. And just learning these patterns for stage work, and it being such a long piece as well, it was just draining. It was absolutely draining. Anyway, that was truncated to a slightly more manageable 2 hours. But then we had War Work, and this is great because I hadn't done much with Michael for quite a few years, and he'd not been well.
And I said, I'm writing this piece which has First World War poems, mostly by poets who were killed during the war. And I found August Strahm, who was a kind of modernist poet and who wrote poems in which each line consisted of only one word. So the poems are written in the kind of as a long kind of string of texts, and the words are Raum and Nacht and whatever, so very harsh. So I signed Hilary up immediately.
And I said, yeah, of course, please, of course. Yeah.
War Work is called War Work, 8 Songs with Film. And what's interesting is that originally the film was more important than the soundtrack. So the soundtrack was just some instrumental pieces. And then I found on Facebook, which is kind of main source of my knowledge of music these days, someone had posted the Kyrie of the Rossini Petite Messe Solennelle. And I listened to it and I thought, okay, this will make an amazing vocal piece of a different kind using this Strahm text. And I kind of slowed the music down and added a lot of kind of weight, and then added Hilary's voice.
I received the score and immediately saw the first song, which is Urtod. And it's full of this screaming, raging, wrathful low notes. I mean, really low notes. We're talking bottom E's and things, and A's are just shouting. And it was really, I thought, oh yeah, thank you. You haven't forgotten my voice. Thank you very much. Raum, Zeit, Raum, vegan.
I think the reason that the songs in War Work are so strong is because I think, like a very good remixer, sort of DJ, what I've done in War Work is to do this kind of remix set and to rely on and to amplify and to unashamedly say, this music has this life, it has these kind of aesthetic values, and it has this kind of power to overwhelm in a way that, if I'd sat down and set those texts from scratch with, Michael Nyman music, something else would have happened, but I wouldn't have those songs living through that culture that we all know and love. The slow movement of the Schubert, I'd use 2 themes. One of them again for another Strahm poem, Heidekampf.
Sonne, halde, stampfen, keuche.
And it's kind of very interesting that, my particular take on the Schubert, plus the Strahm text, which obviously is, let's say, very rhythmic and martial, and the residual musical language within the Schubert, which translates very easily into a Nazi march. And the last thing I intended to do was to write a Nazi march. With Hilary, I'm just kind of so certain of how her voice is and how it will react to what I write for her, that I just do what classical composers do, and that's kind of write the stuff and then send it, and 1 or 2 things might be changed. There may be kind of octave transpositions or whatever.
I mean, range-wise, I don't think he's ever had to ask. He just writes, and I've never said no. So I think from that point of view, he's just written the notes that he wants or the notes that he needs. And then in terms of performance style, he just knows that I'll go with the band and I know how to do it. I wouldn't sing it as I would sing other music necessarily, but there's a specific groove of getting into, and it's not full-on vibrato all the time. Sometimes you've got to sort of blue the notes up a bit and, you know, make them harsh and roar them. You know, when the band gets on that roar, you just have to ride it.
I stopped, and I wasn't tempted to go beyond the 8 songs. I mean, I think simply because, you know, Hilary's performance is kind of such a unity and has such dignity that I just can't extend it, and wouldn't dream of extending it.
I'm incredibly lucky to have worked with so many amazing musicians and composers and conductors. Ollie Nusson, George Benjamin, Gerald Barry, Boulez, of course.
We have this joke that if Boulez had known that the sounds of Michael Nyman issued from the same mouth as Le Motte Sans Maître, he probably would have either had me assassinated or her banned. I'm not really sure.
It is an incredible thing working for these people and singing their music with them and, you know, performing it the way that you want to and having their blessing, if you like. I think the difference with Michael is that his music is so different to that. I mean, you know, you can say, well, George's music is very different to Gerald. I mean, everybody's music is very different from anyone else. But Michael's is so outside of that sphere. And I have to, you know, I will always say this. Michael's music touches me and moves me. I can be weeping backstage listening to the first half of a concert before I'm going on, because I just find that music so touching in a way that I would never probably weep at a Boulez score. You either get it or you don't, and I love it, and I will continue to play it in my car and sing along. And it doesn't matter that he's written it for me, but even, you know, even the band stuff or stuff that isn't written for me, or the concertos and things, I can still absolutely just go along with it and love it and sing along.